Hello friends, welcome to this ninth lecture on the course on consumer psychology. Now this is the last lecture in this level, or I would say this section or this module, where we will finish off with the last process of consumer decision making. So for the last 8 lectures we were looking at how does the consumer actually decide to buy a product. We started our journey by explaining how the what is consumer behavior, what is products, and what is it that the consumer want when he goes into the market. So that was lecture number 1. We looked at all factors of consumer behavior. Additionally, we also looked at how to do research in consumer behavior. So basically, we focused on observation based research, experiment based research, lab and field based research, and so many other things. There we also looked at something called marketing strategies. So basically, what is market segmentation, how does the market, how does the manufacturer understands the market, and how does he make his product suitable to the consumer. Then we moved on to the set of lectures where we looked at how does the consumer actually go into the market and makes the decision to buy the final product. So in the first phase we looked at information search and need arousal. So 2 steps of consumer decision making. So where the first step for any consumer to buy a product is arousal of a need. He has to understand that he has a need of a product, and we looked at those factors which affect this need arousal. Then we swiftly moved over to something called information search. And whenever a need of a particular product is aroused, whenever you want something from the market, whenever you want to buy something and there is a lack of something in your life, you go into the market to buy that thing, material products. And so we looked at strategies of gaining information. Now there I pointed out that there are 2 ways, there are 2 kind of products. One is called the high involvement product, the other is called the low involvement product. And so in high involvement product, the consumer goes through all the steps of the EKB model. Now the EKB model is the model through which the consumer makes the decision of what product to buy and what not to. And for low involvement products, it's not necessarily that he goes through all the steps. So need arousal is there, and at times there is no search, so there is alternate evaluation and a final purchase is made. And then there is satisfaction or dissatisfaction. So that is what we looked at. And so we also focused on the type of strategies the consumer uses for getting information. So we used at something called internal strategy, which generally experts tend to use, is dependent on memory, and something called external strategy, where consumer actually goes ahead to the market, gets information which is put on in the market by the marketer, processes that in various ways, and gets information about the product. In the set of next 3 lectures, we looked at an important part of this decision making process, which is called alternate evaluation and choice. So we started up first defining what is alternate evaluation, right? What is the process of alternate evaluation? So given the fact that the market is flooded with so many products out there, the consumer has to decide between what to buy and what not to buy. And so this decision process of comparing different products and product benefits is what is called alternate evaluation. So in the first part of that series of 3 lectures where we discussed alternate evaluation and choice, we looked at how does the consumer decide those parameters, those characteristics on the basis of which he is going to make the comparison on different products. So how does the consumer decides the determinant attributes? And so we looked at market prone factors, consumer based factors, psychological factors, and so many other information within that paradigm of how the consumer actually decides the determinant factors, determinant parameters on the basis of which he is going to do the alternate evaluation. Next in series came a lecture where we explained the models that the consumer uses, the mathematical model the consumer uses for making these decisions based on the attributes or based on the parameters that he has decided or determinants that he has decided. And so we looked at something called the compensatory model and non-compensatory model, and we also looked at something called the decision heuristic model. And so, within the compensatory and non-compensatory, you have the disjunctive, the conjunctive model, and within the compensatory you have weighted average, simple average model, the lexicographic, elimination by aspect, and see these are some of the models which the consumer actually uses to narrow down the products that he is going to buy, given the fact that competitive brands are available and all of them offer him the same kind of benefits which he is designing for. And then we also looked at something called heuristic model, where price, product promotion, or product reputation, ease of use, time, these kind of factors are also sometimes used by the consumers for deciding what to buy and what not to buy. And towards the end of that lecture, we looked at something called choice, of how do you make the final choice. So, once an alternate evaluation is done, maybe one, maybe a couple of products are available from which you have to make the final choices. So, from the number of products which are available in the market, which is offering you competing benefits, you then make a choice. This choice process is what we decided in or what we discussed in the next lecture. So, we looked at not only the fact that how products are chosen, we also looked at something called outlet choice. So, where you buy the product, that is also important. It is not only the product that you get is important, it is also important where you buy that product. And so, the whole shopping experience is what we discussed in the next lecture. We looked at how does the consumer decide an outlet where he is going to buy a product, and then we also looked at how does the consumer do the shopping, what is the methods of shopping and how many types of shoppers are there. That was lecture number 7. In lecture number 8, which was the previous lecture, what we looked at is something called post purchase evaluation. So, once you buy a product and you consume it, this consumption leads to either satisfaction or dissatisfaction or cognitive dissonance. And so, in the last lecture, we looked at what is consumption, right? What is it about? What is the process of consumption about? What does it entail? What factors affect it, and so on and so forth. And so, what is the role of marketer in consumption? What can the marketer do to improve consumption? And towards the end of the lecture, we looked at something called satisfaction and dissatisfaction. So, once you consume a product, you basically are either satisfied with it or dissatisfied with it. And we looked at different kinds of satisfaction, the different types of satisfaction which are there. So, and the variables which are affecting the satisfaction. Now, once you buy a product and through alternate evaluation and choice, and after that you use it, you consume it, the product can lead to 3 things. The consumption of the product can lead to 3 outputs. One is you get satisfied with it, the other is you get dissatisfied with it, and the third is you get a feeling of dissonance, cognitive dissonance. And so, what we will do in this present lecture is we look at what is this cognitive dissonance and how do consumers actually handle this cognitive dissonance, the process of cognitive dissonance, and what does the marketer do to handle this cognitive dissonance. Further on, we will also look at how once a negative feedback is there after using a product, how does the consumer react to it and how does the marketer react to it, what can he do to reduce this negative feedback or this negative dissatisfaction that he has after using the product. And towards the end of the lecture, we look into important part of consumption, which is how do we get rid of the product. So, how do we dispose the product, that is what we will do. So, starting with cognitive dissonance, when product is used by a consumer gets involved with a product or starts using the product, and after the use has been done or even before the use, a state comes in where he is very confused, right, and that is called cognitive dissonance. Now, in psychology, what is cognitive dissonance? The idea of cognitive dissonance comes from the fact that when somebody's belief and somebody's attitude are different, then a state exists which is called cognitive dissonance. So, what is cognitive dissonance? Suppose there is a likingness towards, let us say, take an example, likingness towards BJP. Now, the thing is, you are with friends who are all Congress supporters, and so there you although try to voice yourself, but you see that most people are facing or are towards Congress, and so what happens is no matter how whatever beliefs you have about BJP, you have to tell negative about that particular party. So, you believe positive about it, but when you start saying negative about it, the disruption that happens when you believe something and when you say something else, when you act in a different way, is what is called cognitive dissonance. And so, this cognitive dissonance also happens in brand purchases and brand consume or product consumption. So, let us look into what really this is all about. So, purchase associated cognitive dissonance. When you make a purchase of a particular product or a service, the cognitive dissonance can occur, where what can happen is you could have a negative attitude toward a product and still the belief is negative, but by using it the attitude becomes positive, or it could be the other way around. You believe that the product has very good, that it should offer you very good satisfaction level with the information that you have got, but actually it does not offer you, and so this is a state of cognitive dissonance. So, as the consumer makes a commitment to the purchase or selection of the product, in most cases before the use or possession, there is a feeling of uncertainty about whether the choice is right, that he is buying the product. So, before buying a product, before a consumer actually buys a product, the feeling of uncertainty about whether the right choice is being made or not is basically what is called cognitive dissonance. So, it happens just before buying the product, and so most of us have that feeling whenever we have decided onto something, and so people are never 100% confirmed about any products. So, that feeling, that lingering feeling before you buy a product or just before you or after you have purchased a product, that feeling of whether the right decision has been made or not is what is called cognitive dissonance. So, it is a little bit different from what the idea of cognitive dissonance is, and this happens because your beliefs and your attitude, your behavior are entirely different. So, when is this cognitive dissonance or this feeling of uncertainty, how is it controlled? What are the factors that controls this cognitive dissonance? So, the feeling of uncertainty when you are buying a product, just before you bought a product or after buying a product, immediately after buying a product is what is called cognitive dissonance. And so, what are the factors which are going to affect this cognitive dissonance? One is the importance of the purchase decision. The more important the purchase decision, the more dear a purchase is to you, the more amount of cost that you are going to put to that particular product, the more amount of time you have spent onto it, the more important the product is. So, the more close the product is to you, the more the cognitive dissonance is that's going to happen, and that's quite natural, because the more important it is, the more you fear that if you do the wrong decision, if you take the wrong decision, a failure would result, and so you will not be satisfied, and so this cognitive dissonance increases. The second thing is, some consumers are anxious by nature, and so there is something in psychology which is called a generalized anxiety disorder, and so there are classes of people who have free floating anxiety. Now, free floating anxiety is a state where people are anxious because they do not have a source of this anxiousness, and so there are a class of people who are always anxious. They have this free floating anxiety, there is no source, and so from any situation which offers them some challenge, which offers them some ambiguity, uncertainty, they become anxious, and so for that kind of class of people, this cognitive dissonance tends to increase. So, the class of people who has this, or class of consumers who have this free floating anxiety, for them this cognitive dissonance is going to be high. Then finality of purchase. The more final a purchase is, the more closer you come to the purchase, the more the cognitive dissonance. So, if you come to know, or if you know that this is the final step of purchase, you have entered your credit card number on buying something, the more closer you become to acquiring it, the more the dissonance happens. And so, it happens with most of us when we are making a big purchase through Amazon or web or Flipkart or any website which is out there. The last point, up till the time that we are browsing, it is very good, it is appealing, we add it to the cart, we are there. Finally, the point comes when we have to put the actual CVV number and the transfer has to go through. At that point of time, the more final stages of purchase comes out, the more the anxiety or more the cognitive dissonance happens. And fourth, the clarity of the final purchase. Also, finality could be, if you look at that, once you buy that product, there is very less scope of reverting this decision. That could also lead to higher cognitive dissonance. And the clarity of the final purchase. The lesser clarity you have what a product buying, the higher the cognitive dissonance. The more clear of what you want to buy or what type of product you want to buy, the lesser the cognitive dissonance. But the lesser clarity you have about a particular purchase, the higher the cognitive dissonance. So, these are the factors which actually affect cognitive dissonance. So, how do the consumers they attempt to reduce this cognitive dissonance. How do consumers reduce this cognitive dissonance? There are several factors that can happen. They can find ways to reinforce the desirability of the choice made. So, once they buy a product, they can, what they can do is they can find ways that they desired the product. So, let us say I bought a camera, or I bought a new cell phone when I had a cell phone to start with, and I feel cognitive dissonance while buying it. What I can do is I can give some reason to it that this was desirable to me. So, I can increase the desirability by reinforcing me in some way, saying that okay, what would happen is this phone would break, or it's not working in some way, or I have to gift it to someone, or so on and so forth. And so, I can reinforce myself in some way. And so, what I can do is find ways to reinforce this desirability, or the fact that this phone is very good. What would happen is in some time this is no more available, and so many causes. The other reason, or the other way in which the consumer can reduce this dissonance is that consumers may try to make the losing choice look weaker in comparison to the brand that they actually purchase. And so, what can happen here is that if there are two brands that you are looking forward for, that you are buying, and one of these brands is you brought, the second brand is also appealing, but you did not buy, and so as soon as the purchase is over, you realize that there is some kind of cognitive dissonance about the second product. What you can do is find out negatives about the second product, make it look weaker. So, find out those loopholes that can reinforce you on your product buying, right. So, I was buying say OnePlus 6, attempting to buy OnePlus 6 and a Vivo phone, and suddenly I bought the Vivo phone, and now OnePlus 6 looks more desirable to me. Now, I will find out ways in which it is not equal to Vivo. For example, its camera is not that good. Vivo is a good company about camera phones, and so that could be the reason, and so I can make the other choice look weaker. So, one strategy is making the choice look weaker, the losing choice look weaker. And sometimes consumers make conscious efforts after purchasing to view the choice decision as less important. And sometimes what consumers tend to do is, when none of these strategies is working, what the consumer tends to do is that he makes the choice that that has happened in the product buying look weaker. So, he would say that okay, this phone I have bought, say out of non-desirability, out of impulse purchase, and so it's not that important, right? Money is nothing, and that kind of statements where you say that okay, phone buying is nothing, it's not that important, but still I have bought it, and so on and so forth. So, that kind of reasoning where you can make the decision as less important of buying the product that you bought and not buying the one that you wanted to, or because of which the cognitive dissonance is happening. What you can do is make it believe as the decision that you have taken is less important, and so that is one way to reduce cognitive dissonance. Now, there are certain things that the marketer can also do to reduce dissonance. So, what can the marketer do to reduce dissonance? First of all, they should match the products with the appropriate target consumers. So, whatever the consumer is wanting, they should understand whatever the consumer is wanting, what are the benefits is wanting, and match the product accordingly. They should not give false hope, right. So, as close the self image of the person is with the product image, and as close the match that the target consumer and the product is, the better the cognitive dissonance is going to be, the lesser the cognitive dissonance to be. So, never give false hope. What marketer can do is find those ways through which he can find marketer can find a close match between the consumer and his product. What else can he do? The product itself, its packaging and promotional communication should also be developed within this objective in mind. And so, the development of the product should be done in such a way so that it matches the consumer's liking, right. So, if the consumer is young, it should be all flashy, it should be the more bright and vibrant colors, the packaging should be good. But if it is for people who are old, it should be subtle colors should be used, more decency, less of style, and that kind of a thing. Let us take an example of jeans. For example, the jean company. So, if you are looking for older people, or say above 30, the jeans should be advertised in such a way that it is offering you much comfort, it is less of a style, more of a comfort thing. But if you are offering the same product for younger generation, for younger people, what could happen is you can care about styling, think about packaging in certain way, advertise in that way, and so on and so forth. And so, if you do that, what is going to happen is less cognitive dissonance is going to be there in the consumer's mind. And what else can be done? The marketers can think about return policies, warranties, in-store demonstrations and post-purchase installations and services. So, you can think about no question ask return policies, can give warranties on their products if it fails, or somehow cover the idea that if the product fails then it would be taken back, and that is why you have this 30 days return policy or 7 days return policy, the no question ask kind of a thing. So, these factors actually help the consumer in deciding the product or basically lowering the cognitive dissonance out of it. Or you can give product demonstrations and offer post purchase installation services and so on and so forth. So, a range of factors that the marketer can actually take care of, and that will reduce the cognitive dissonance in people. So, let us now focus on to something called post purchase behavior. What is post? So, once a product has been used and the consumer is either satisfied or dissatisfied, how does this post purchase behavior go about? So, analyzing what happens after sale is as important as understanding what causes consumers to buy it in the first place. Now, understanding consumers and understanding their needs and understanding why they buy a product is as important or holds similar value as finding out about what happens after a sale. Once a consumer buys a product, what happens after that? Why is this important? Because with studying what a consumer wants and why he should come to you, you will only be studying the intent, you will not be studying the behavior. But once you understand, once you study post purchase behavior, once you study after sale how the consumer is utilizing that product or what is he doing with the product, how is interacting, what are the factors which are affecting, what are the outputs of it, then what would happen is you will have a certain consumer with you and more loyal consumers or consumers who actually stick with you, and this will also help you in gaining newer consumers. The game here is that brand loyal consumers will always stick with you. The game here is to get new consumers, to eat up in some other marketers consumer base and make them loyal towards your product, and that can only happen when once you understand what is happening after the sale. Once you buy a product, what is happening after that, and that is an important fact. So, analyzing both positive and negative post purchase behavior is a very effective means through which. So, why do we analyze both positive and negative behavior? Positive behavior is very good. We analyze positive behavior because that tells us what is good about a product and how to how does what kind of messaging should I use, what kind of advertisement should I use, or what impact that it had in the consumer and how they get attracted to it. But why studying negative post purchase behavior? So, negative post purchase behavior, studying that will make it sure that you lessen whatever is not working for your product. Those dissatisfactions or those features of your product which is not working, which is making the consumers go away, you can actually improve upon them and attract more consumers. And so, more important than studying positive post purchase behavior is studying negative post purchase behavior. Now, why should we do it? Because goods and services can be improved. Once we do that, once we understand both or study both negative and positive post purchase behaviors, what marketers can do is improve the goods and services. What else can happen? Promotion are better targeted. So, they can have advertisements which are dedicated, which are meant for or which appeals to the actual segment of consumers that he is targeting to. So, promotions can be then very directed in nature. It could be for meant for those people, and it could directly appeal to the consumer. So, I can have that kind of promotions once I do that, once I study both positive and negative post purchase behavior. And the third thing is strategies reshaped both to keep current customers and attract new ones. And the last thing that can happen is I can improve upon my strategies of bringing in more customers. And so, once I study this negative post purchase behavior and positive post purchase behavior, I will come to know what is going wrong, what is going right, and sometimes it is not the product, it is the consumer itself. So, something goes wrong into the consumer or environmental factors that may go wrong. And so, once I do this post purchase evaluation, I will come to know how to keep my consumers with me, my people with me, and eat into other people's market. So, it is an important thing for understanding this post purchase behavior pattern. So, positive post purchase. what happens after positive post purchase? Now, obviously, the first thing that can happen after positive post purchase is a high level of satisfaction, and so what will happen is consumers will become loyal to them. And so, the first fact that happens is consumer loyalty. So, what is loyalty? It's a feeling of commitment to a product, brand, marketer or an outlet that results in higher levels of repeated purchasing and outlet visiting. So, if a consumer is highly satisfied, it has a positive post purchase experience. If he buys a product, he is highly satisfied, he has a positive post purchase experience, he becomes loyal to the particular brand. And what is loyalty? In loyalty is the commitment to a product, brand, market and outlet. So, a good example of loyalty is Apple users or people who use Harley Davidson. Now, people who use Apple products or an Apple iPhone, no matter how hard you try, they are brand loyal. They are not going to switch their product, which basically means that they worship the product. They become committed to it in such a way. So, in terms of relationships, they become committed to the product. And so, no matter, and in these cases, what happens is the weakness of the products is offset by its strength. So, it's more of a compensatory method of decision making, compensatory decision making for doing the alternate evaluation. So, whenever a brand competes with Apple, the consumers do compensatory method, the weakness is offset by its strength, and that kind of method basically makes the consumers brand loyal. Now, brand loyal is the commitment to the product. They believe that the product has all the unnecessary benefits that is going to offer, and if something is not there, then they believe that that is not desirable, that factor, that parameter that the product doesn't have is not desirable, and that is the reason why it is not been put to. And so, that is what is called loyalty, right. So, once a consumer or once consumers have positive post purchase behavior, they are satisfied with the product, they turn out to be loyal. Now, consumers might always buy a particular brand, but unless there is commitment, there is not considered loyal. So, the key word for brand loyalty is commitment. The commitment has to be basically visiting you and buying your product and using it again and again. Now, it could be that a particular person or a group of people are using a product, and so just using a product is not being committed. One good example is the Indian Railways website. So, people have to use it, and so there is nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, and so they buy and they use it. But then, since even if more people are buying tickets from it, they are not loyal. If you ask them whether they like this, what is the attitude towards Indian Railways, it is not a very good attitude, and so they are not brand loyal, but they use it. And so, more usage of a product or more buying of a product does not guarantee, or even satisfaction does not guarantee a brand loyalty. Brand loyalty only comes from a commitment which you have towards the product. There is also something called the satisfaction trap. Just because a customer is satisfied does not make him or her loyal, and as I was speaking, that satisfaction does not guarantee brand loyalty. A person could be very satisfied with a product, but he would not be brand loyal. Right. So, loyalty and satisfaction are two different things. Satisfaction is that you use a product, you get good feelings about it, but then you may not be loyal. On the other hand, loyalty is all about commitment. If you are committed to a product, no matter what happens, you are not going to move yourself away. That is called loyalty. And so, satisfaction trap is the fact that you might be using a product, you feel good about it, you feel satisfied with it, but you are not loyal. And so, that is why loyalty has been explained through certain phase. So, how do you explain loyalty then? Loyalty is explained through 3 or 4 phases, and so these phases are similar to attitude in social psychology. So, in attitude also there are similar phases which are there in attitude. Similar to that, there are phases in loyalty. So, let us keep to the loyalty phases. What is the loyalty phase? The first phase of loyalty is called cognitive loyalty. So, there are some consumers who have cognitive loyalty, and so what are those consumers? Based on the beliefs about the brand, outlet and only. So, these consumers have extensive information collected about a particular product and extensive visits to the outlet of the product, and they believe the product is going to work, and so these people are said to have cognitive loyalty, right. So, they have not bought the product, remember, they have extensive knowledge about the product, they believe that the product is going to work, and they have something called cognitive loyalty, because the thought process suggests that the product is good, the product that you are going to give, that they are going to buy will offer them satisfaction. The next kind of loyalty is basically affective loyalty. And so, what is affective loyalty? It is a positive attitude towards the brand. and that is developed on the basis of repeated satisfying use. When you feel positive towards a brand, when you buy a particular brand and you have good feeling about it, you have a positive feeling about it, you feel elated by using it, that is called affective loyalty. And so, affective loyalty can happen only when you have bought the product again and again and you have used it. The third part of loyalty, or third type of loyalty, is called cognitive loyalty. And what does it mean? It may be thought of as a good intention based on repeated episodes where positive effect towards the brand is experienced. And so, in cognitive loyalty, what happens is it's behavior related loyalty. And so, what happens is when, or an intention related loyalty. And so, what happens in this case is that if a product offers you good satisfaction and you feel positive towards it, your intent towards buying it increases. So, you not only believe that it is going to work, your intention, your readiness to buy it also increases in that way, and that is called the cognitive loyalty. But cognitive loyalty, affective loyalty and cognitive loyalty is not customer loyalty as such. Until and unless a person has something called action loyalty, he is not a true product loyal or brand loyal person. And so, what is action loyalty? It occurs when the motivation is converted to readiness to act. So, when you are satisfied with a product, you have good feeling about it, you have good intention about it, and when you are motivated enough to buy the product, no matter what happens, travel spaces, spend money, take risk and buy the product, that is what is called action loyalty. So, with the additional desire to overcome all the obstacles that you might have, that might prevent you to actually buy the product. So, no matter what happens, you travel to places to buy that particular product, and that is what we see in Apple products. When an Apple product is advertised, people actually wait for long hours outside the shop, and that is called the action loyalty. Right? A new video game is advertised, a new movie comes in, right? So, people wait outside theaters, like the recent movie Infinity War. When it came in, people actually waited for the movie, and in the first day itself, it actually got so much money, it earned so much money, and that was called action loyalty, because people overcome all hurdles to buy the product, and that is called commitment. And then we have this brand loyalty. So, 4 phases of loyalty to be discussed. So, what factors are going to increase this brand loyalty? A number of factors actually improves this brand loyalty. The number of brands available. The fewer number of brands are available, the more consumer is loyal towards the brand. The more number of brands are available, the consumer is not loyal to any brand. Frequency of purchase. The lesser the frequency of purchase, the lesser the loyalty. The more the frequency of purchase, the more the loyalty. More frequently you buy a product, more you interact with it, the more loyal you become. The lesser you buy it, for example, articles for marriages or things for ritualistic consumption, there you will not become brand loyal, that kind of a thing. Perceived differences among brand. The more the perceived differences among brand, the more the loyalty. The lesser the perceived difference upon brand, the lesser the loyalty. Because if you believe that all brands are similar, then you will not be loyal to any brand as such. But if you believe that there are differences between your brand and the other brand, and the more satisfaction is given to you by your brand, the more loyal you will become. Level of involvement. The more involved you are with a product, the more the loyalty. The lesser involved you are with a product, the lesser the loyalty is going to be. Because as you become more and more involved with a product, you start understanding it, you start showing commitment towards it, you start interacting with in a way, and so this commitment gets established, right? No matter what you want to buy it, and you start seeing it through and using it through difficulties, and so that leads to this commitment and that brand loyalty. Level of perceived risk. The lesser the risk that a product is going to offer, the more the loyalty will be there. The higher risk a product is going to offer to you, the lower the loyalty will be. And brand benefits. The more the brand benefits that you are going to buy, that a brand has to offer to you, the higher the loyalty will be, consumer loyalty will be. The number of brand benefits, if it is less, the brand loyalty with that particular brand will not be that much high. So, another interesting thing to be looked at. So, what are the characteristics of brand loyal consumers? The first is brand loyal consumers are self confident. Brand loyal consumers are the same people who have high self confidence. They believe that the brand that they are buying is actually going to help them in whatever needs that they have, is going to elate them both in functional attributes as well as social attributes, as well as they believe that they are an expert into that brand, and whatever the company decides for them is for their best. And so they are very self confident, they believe that they are an expert, they have all the knowledge, and so brand loyal customers are self confidence, higher self confidence. Now, feeling capable of making good brand choices in the marketplace and will stay with the choices they make. So, brand loyal people actually are much read, right, and so they are capable of making good brand choices. They through the expertise they make good brand choices, and once a choice has been made, they do not shift from that choice, they stick with the choice, and that choice actually offers them a lot of satisfaction. And so one characteristic of brand loyal consumers is that they can have good brand choices. They tend to perceive quite high levels of risk. They can perceive these high levels of risk, right, involved with product purchases, and therefore stand by accepted brands to reduce that risk. So, they believe that they are more risk prone people, and so they believe that higher risks are there in shifting between two brands or in buying two brands, and the number of alternatives improve or increases, the more the risk is. And so, why they stick to their brand, why they are brand loyal, is because that will reduce the risk. They are not risk taking people, they are risk aversive people, and so because customers who are risk aversive, they stick to a particular brand because that reduces the risk of experimenting into the marketplace. And so brand loyal people are always risk aversive in nature, and they tend to be outlet loyal also. Generally seen that people who are brand loyal are also outlet loyal. The reason why a brand loyal person is an outlet loyal person is because people who prefer a particular brand also prefer an outlet from where they are going to buy that particular brand, and that may be one of the reason why people who are brand loyal are also outlet loyal. Now, there are some consumers who actually, or there are some situations where loyalty to multiple brands are shown. Now, when does that happen? Many consumers are loyal to a group of brands then that are essentially equal in their eyes. So, sometimes what happens is you have people who are not loyal to one brand but a group of brands, and so what happens when that happens is they are loyal to a group of brands because they believe that all brands offer them equal choices, and so if one brand is not available, they will switch to another brand. And that happens because they have in the consideration set that we discussed in terms of information search, the consideration set has a number of brands which are all equal, right. And so, when that happens, you have a situation in the market where people are loyal to many brands. So, if they do not have the product or the brand which they want to buy in the market, what they will do is they will switch to different brand which offers them competing prices or competing benefits. Now, the consumer makes a decision based on what is happening into the marketplace, and these are the same people who actually are marketplace dependent. So, they look at which brand is, so given the fact that the consideration set has a number of brands and all of them are equal in terms of delivering benefits to them, they look at the marketplace in terms of what is happening, which brand is giving them which kind of a benefit, and they compare that, and based on them they make a choice of which brand to take and which not to. So, they are market dependent people. So, given the fact that they have a number of brands which offer them all kind of benefits, they make the choice according to the marketplace situations rather than the brand loyalty. So, brand advertising should not star the brand alone, but also emphasize key product class benefits, characteristics and situations of consumption. And so, in this case, what the marketers can do if they want more people to be brand loyal is that when emphasizing the brand alone, they should also emphasize key product class benefits, characteristics and situation of consumption. So, not only telling what their brand is going to do, that brand alone is going to do, but that class of brand, what it can offer to you, how should you consume that particular brand, characteristics, class benefit characteristics, all those things if you go put forward in front of the consumer, it give information about these factors to the consumer, the more they will be brand loyal to you and they will not be loyal to multiple brands. So, these are some of the things that happen when a consumer is brand loyal to multiple products. So, once a consumer is brand loyal to a particular product, what happens after that? He buys the product, gets satisfied, and after that there is something called positive word of mouth. So, the positive feeling that he has about a particular brand is spread through this positive word of mouth kind of situation. So, if consumers have a positive experience with a product or service, they may spread the word to friends and others. So, if a consumer has positive feelings about a particular brand, if he is satisfied with a particular brand, if he feels good about the particular brand, he becomes brand loyal. And so, what he does is, the first thing that he does is he spreads the word to friends and others. All people that he know, he will always be going gaga about the product. He will be always telling the benefits of the product to others, and make sure that other people also buy that particular benefit that he is getting from the product and the same product that he has brought. So, he will be spreading good words about the product from his mouth. And when does that happen? When the consumer is satisfied with the experience. If a consumer is satisfied with the experience, he spreads the positive word or positive feelings about the product, positive information about the product, positive consumption information about the product, experience about the product to other peoples when he is satisfied with the experience that he has with the product. And this experience is not just dealing with the actual product itself, but the situation with it, the post purchase consumption, the post purchase process, and so on and so forth. When consumers are committed to the product, brand, or outlet, then they spread this positive word of mouth. So, this positive word of mouth is actually high in those consumers who are committed to a particular product, which basically translates to the fact that they are brand loyal. So, the more committed you are to a product, the more satisfied you feel with a product, the more effective cognitive and cognitive loyalty and motivational loyalty, action loyalty you have to a product, then the more you like that product, the more commitment you have with that product, and the more positive word of mouth you will spread about the product. And there is a strong identification on the part of the consumer with the product, brand, and outlet. And so, consumers personality matches with the brand. So, he sees himself as a part of the brand. There is much to share between his personality and the brand personality, and so he sees a strong identification. For example, those riders who ride Harley Davidson, if you look at them, their personality matches with the bike's personality. You never seen a lean and thin guy actually riding a Harley Davidson, doesn't look good. So, people who actually ride Harley Davidson they look like it, they look like they deserve it. And so, people who spread positive word of mouth are the same who feels that their identification is shared by the product identification. So, on cases when a positive satisfaction happens, several things occurs, but when a customer or a consumer is not satisfied with the product, what happens? A negative post purchase behavior is taken care by something. So, when does a negative post purchase behavior happen? When recovery expectations are tied to customers' belief about the level of reparation that is appropriate for his failure. So, whenever a product is actually not benefiting a consumer, it fails in benefiting a consumer, a negative post purchase happens, and so that is tied to the beliefs about the level of reparation dependent on the level of reparation that the consumer feels appropriate after the failure is going to happen. And what can happen? So, negative post purchase behavior, how does it happen, or what can happen? The first thing is that negative word of mouth. So, if a particular product actually does not offer you the kind of benefit that you are looking for, or somehow it fails you in certain way, in terms of use or in terms of any other factor, what happens is there is negative word of mouth. So, friends and family and your known people, you will start saying negative about the product. You will start spreading things about the, not spreading actually, here you start saying negative about the product attributes, why you do not like the product, why they should not buy the product, and so on and so forth. So, negative information or those factors which did not work through the asymmetric effect, that is highlighted, and that is what is basically through the contrast effect that is highlighted, and that is sent into the consumers, to other people that you know. So, you will do a negative word of mouth kind of a negative information flow about the product and those features which does not work, and that happens the first thing. What else can happen when a negative post purchase experience is experienced by a consumer, or a consumer goes through a negative post purchase feeling? Some consumers tend to spreading rumors. So, rumors are very bad for any product manufacturer. So rumors are those statements which are spread into the market which has no truth behind it, and so rumors actually harm a product in many ways. And so one way of actually dealing with negative post purchase is spreading rumors, spreading unfalse information, spreading information which is fake, which has no basis on all, and that hurts a company a lot. And so I have some good examples here. For example, Maggi. Now recently in India, this Maggi company had this rumor that it contains bones, human bones, or sometimes it was things which are not eatable, iron content, potassium content, and so many other things were there. And so that was one thing which hurt Maggi in a lot of way, and Maggi actually went away from the market for some time, but it came back. That's another thing. I think in 2015 it happened and it came back, but then that was what the rumor was all about. Or for example, Gillette, this company also faced a lot of rumors where it was believed that their the shavers have asbestos in them, and that was quite a something which hurt the company in a certain way. And the most popular is the Procter and Gamble logo. Now if you have seen the Procter and Gamble logo, there is this old man which is there with stars on the side, and so it was believed that Procter and Gamble, it is a satanic company. And so if you turn the logo, you will see 666, which is the number for Satan, the roadway to hell. And so if you turn the logo in a way, it turns out to be satanic. Also it was believed that a part of the company actually promotes satanic churches, and so that kind of a thing was there. And so these are the rumors, and it hurt the company in a major way. So one of the things that can happen from negative post purchase behavior is spreading of rumors. What else can happen? Consumers can actually hold grudge, right? So they will not do something, but they may hold grudge about the particular company. If a particular product fails, they may hold this grudge about this external company or this particular company because the product has not worked the way they wanted. And so what all can happen? Three things can happen. Still the consumer has not gone public, it is still in a private place. So what it can do is the consumer can exit, which basically means that stop buying that product at all, end the commitment, end the relationship, and so on and so forth. He can voice his dissatisfaction, he can write letters to management, write letters to the company and voice his dissatisfaction, saying that I am not happy with this product, take it back, give me benefits, or so on and so forth, or he can terminate his loyalty. So exit means is not ending the loyalty, but terminating loyalty is another thing. He will not become loyal to that product, so and all commitments to it. Exit means not buying it anymore. Terminating loyalty means that in all future endeavors he will not actually think of the product. So this is one way in which a negative post purchase decision can actually harm a product or product marketer. And the fourth is complaint behavior. So this is the most important or interesting thing to look at, what the consumer can do beside negative word of mouth, rumor, and grudge holding, is he can do complaints. So this complaint behavior is another important thing which is to be looked here. So basically this complaint behavior, if a product has negative post purchase, so if you buy a product and it is negative feelings are generated onto you, the consumers can indulge in something called complaint behavior. So this satisfaction that I was talking about, that can have three ways of going. This complaint behavior has three ways of going. So consumer can take a public action, the consumer can take no action, or the consumer can take a private action. Now in private action, what can happen is the consumer can warn family and friends about the others, so that is positive word of mouth. He can boycott the store at all. So these are private actions where the consumer has not complained. This part is the public action, is where the complaint behavior is all about. So we'll focus into that, but briefly this is private action, or he can decide to stop buying from that manufacturer, and so he can quit, exit. That is what he can do. Or the consumer can take no action at all, so he is dissatisfied, he doesn't take any action. But what majorly can happen is the consumer can take a public action. And what is the public action? He can seek redressal from the firm. So he can go to the firm, ask a redressal, write them a letter, write them some kind of a complaint and ask for redressal. Complaints to business or private or government agencies, you can talk to consumer agencies or consumer right protection agencies or other private groups which are there, which protect the benefits of the consumer, and that way you can get whatever is due to you from the manufacturer because the product did not perform the way it was supposed to work. Or you can take a legal action to obtain redressal. You can go to consumer court, file a case against them, and can get money or whatever in kind, whatever way you are looking at, that kind of redressal will be done to you. So, three things: no action, private action and public action. So, which consumers complain? Why some consumers complain? Because it is important to them. If the decision of buying the product, the purchase decision is very important to the consumer, he is going to complain about or lodge a complaint. If so, this complaint behavior is when a negative post purchase happen. Right, and so when it is important to the consumer, these consumers actually go ahead and complain. Then consumers have level of knowledge and experience with the product are significant. If the consumer is an expert in the product, he has enough knowledge and he has enough experience with the product, and the product fails, in those cases he is going to complain, because he believes that he is an expert in the product and he has enough experience, and so looking at the product, he believes that the failure is not due to him, it is due to the product, and so he goes ahead and complains. What else is there? If the time, energy and financial cost of making the complaint is very less, only those consumers complain. So, if it is very high, if the marketer makes it very high cost to complain, the consumers will not complain. So, if the cost that he believes for complaining is less, then the consumer actually complains about the particular product. And also, if the consumers believe that by complaining a positive outcome can happen. For example, look at Indian Railways. No matter how much complaint you do, they are not going to do anything, and so most consumers do not complain, right? They book a different ticket. That kind of a thing is there. So, when you know something is going to happen, when you complain and you know that something good is going to happen out of it, or some kind of positive outcome will happen out of the complaint, consumers tend to complaining for the dissatisfaction that they have, but then when they understand that nothing good is going to come out of it, the consumers do not complain. So, how is or what can the marketer do to, or how does the marketer take care of this complaint? What the consumer wants is three kinds of justice, and this is what the marketer can do. One is called the distributive justice, where equity in terms of settlement versus perceived cost experienced by the person in the issue. So, what the marketer can do is establish distributive justice or maintain distributive justice, in which the equity in terms of settlement. So, whatever amount of cost that the consumer has experienced in buying that product and seeing it fail, that is reimbursed through settlement for that amount of things. So, it is not only the product price, it is also the other cost which is there, and a price is paid back to the consumer, or money is paid back to the consumer, or a settlement is done in some way. So, the consumer has distributive justice. The amount of effort that he has done in getting the product and the failure has led to him, that kind of effort, that kind of cost is actually reimbursed by the manufacturer, and that is called distributive justice. Then you have procedural justice, and so what is procedural justice? Is derived when the complaint, policies, procedures and criteria used to make a decision, and it is fair. So, when procedural justice is done, when a company shows you that these are the policies of how you make the complaint, the procedures of making the complaint, or how they are hearing the complaint, and the criteria used for making the decision that they have made on your complaint, if that is worthwhile, or that is something that they can show to you, they can show to you that this is worthy, this is called procedural justice. So, sometimes consumers just want procedural justice, and at times there is something called interactional justice. What is that? Which has to do with the way consumers are treated. So, if you can show that whatever decision the company has come to because you have complained, and the way of reaching that that decision, if you can show that it is non-biased in some way, you have demonstrated something called procedural justice. But if there is something called interactional justice, sometimes the consumer just feels that he should be handled in a very nice manner when he is addressing a complaint, he should be treated right, and the whole complaint process should be smooth. So, offering that also is kind of a justice that the marketer can do. So, what you can think of, what marketers can think of, is how to address this complaint. So, people who can listen to them, call centers or in sales marketing people who can listen to them and provide them a feeling of justice, or they are treated well when they are complaining. In those cases, the marketer has in fact demonstrated interactional justice. So, marketer action increases the probability of customer satisfaction. What can the marketer do to increase this customer satisfaction? Realistic expectation. He can put in information so that the consumer has very realistic expectation what the product is going to offer to him, whatever he wants and what the product is going to offer to him. Also demonstrate and explain, the marketer can demonstrate and explain how to use a product. So, if you have a negative post purchase behavior, if you your product fail in one way, what you could do is that you could make your messages in such a way, provide information in such a way that the realistic expectation is demonstrated onto the consumer. You can demonstrate and explain how the product really works. You can stand behind the product saying that my product is good and it's maybe one of a fault or maybe some other reason, that can be the environmental fault, some other fault, or they can encourage customer feedback. And so, this is very important. If you encourage customer feedback, more customers tend to be brand loyal. So, even if they have a dissatisfaction, they start to interact with you, or in future they think about working with you. And then another thing is contact. So, if periodically you can do contact with your customers, that can also increase the chances of or lower the dissatisfaction. And the last part of it is how the disposition happens or how the disposal happens. So, the process of reselling, recycling, trashing, repairing, trading and the like associated with the physical product, packaging and its promotional materials, that is called product disposition. So, once you have used the product, what you do with it is basically called product disposition and is an important part of consumer behavior. So, in terms of recycling or reselling a product or trashing it, trading it, how do you throw it, how do you get disposed of the product once you have used it, that is what is basically product disposition. So, marketers have a joint responsibility with consumers to find and to provide appropriate product disposition. So, it's both the consumer as well as the marketer, both are responsible for this product disposition. So, what can the consumer do? The role of the consumer. So, in terms of product disposition, if a product that he has used and he is okay with it and then he don't want to use it, he wants to dispose it, he can sell it off, the consumers can sell it off, he can donate it or give it to charity, he can give away to someone rent free, he can rent it out, he can loan it out, consumers can load their products or modify a product for a particular purpose. And modification can be, seen some people modifying their old cameras for a CCTV, old mobile phone, sorry, for a CCTV camera. And so, that is modifying a product or using it a product for a different use altogether from which it was actually purchased. So, these are the steps that can the consumer can do. Modify to better perform the original task, he can repair the product, throw it in the trash or recycle. So, these are some of the things that the customer can do to dispose of a particular product when a product has been used. And what can the marketer do? So, government regulations lead directly to environmentally responsible product development and marketing measures. So, one thing that the marketer can do is demarketing. It occurs when sellers attempt to reduce the demand for their goods and services as a result of environmental sensitivity or undersupply of their products and services. So, they can do this demarketing for disposition, or they can offer this something called green marketing also, right. So, green marketers send the messages that their products are environmental friendly. So, one of the ways in which you can look for disposals is, for example, what is HP doing. So, it is taking back everything that the used cartridge and refilling it and or whatever they do with it. So, this kind of offer from the marketer side where they can take care of your product or exchange your older product for newer product kind of a thing, or they can promote this green marketer saying that the number of stars on your electrical appliances reduces the power consumption, that kind of green thing, or this product is made from natural products or natural things or naturally available materials, that kind of promotional messages they can put forward, and that messages can actually help in the disposal of a product. So, basically in the present lecture what we did was we looked at how consumers actually go through this post purchase experiences. So, starting from consumer loyalty to how mounting the dissatisfaction is, and what are the characteristics of consumers who has the dissatisfaction, and what are the methods of product disposal, and so all those things, all those factors which are related to purchase of the post purchase behavior of the product, and talking about brand loyalty, customer loyalty, types of loyalty, how does dissatisfaction happen, happen, and also talking about cognitive dissonances that can happen and how to handle this cognitive dissonance. So, this 9th lecture basically breaks our course into, or ends the first section of a course where we dealt with what is consumer behavior and what is the consumer decision process. From the 10th lecture onward, we will be moving on to those consumer factors, for example, perceptions, attitudes, memory and learning, and things like attitude change, things like mood and emotions, and all those consumer related factors which actually make a consumer behave in a market, or how does these factors actually moderate the interaction that the consumer has in the market, or shapes the behavior of the consumer when he is in the market. So, from the 10th lecture onwards, we will start with perception, then move on to some other cognitive factors, and so we will generally deal 4 or 5 factors which are important in consumer behavior, and we will look into how these factors, what role these factors play in shaping the behavior of the consumer into the market and getting the best benefit from any product and services. So, up till now, whatever we have done was only looking at the consumer process or the consumer decision process. So, that is all for now. Thank you.